hydrants. And then, even if you do have hydrants don't always work either. They have to be maintained. Now, obviously last weekend, there was a water issue out there. So let's just say that happened, you go out there with the fire truck, let me tell you, you start flowing water, you got about 3 or 4 minutes, you're out of water. If you don't have a water source, and if that hydrant is down, now what? Okay, I'm gonna call mutual aid. Well, that's gonna be at least 30 minutes before I get here. What am I doing? He's got his wife inside the house still, but I don't have a water supply, can I let my guys in? I mean, there's so many different factors that you can play into that scenario. And of course, we're playing everything worst case because we have to think worst case because that's what makes us better. You always have to train for that. So anyway, that was just another thing to talk about. I think Matt really explained mutual aid versus automatic aid. And then the MSTU, you want to take off on that?
Yeah, I just want to, because he mentioned in the FAQ where we gave you the actual cost versus proposed, whatever. He was questioning whether this was MSTU or not. It is. That's all MSTU. And you know, we use the actual personnel cost. We use average salaries because it's easier to use statistics. Use statistics for a reason. Because to try to figure out daily staffing and with floaters moving in there would be I would literally have to do a daily thing to try to figure out the actual salary. So we're really close with those numbers. We have an average captain salary, average medic, average EMT, etc. But all that's fire MSTU specific. And one thing that we didn't include that I think is important is on the CIP side. What you're seeing there is the station's portion of just fire equipment and apparatus replacement. It doesn't account for any major capital improvement projects like bricks and mortar, building new structures, i.e. the training facility, which is roughly an $8 million project that the folks at Indiantown will have access to expand their training, do their CEUs, etc. That's not included here. And the county engaged almost $35 million in debt service for all the station projects that are now occurring. So that's not included in that.
So in your proposals, you had 4 proposals. Option 4 was the preferred proposal. And it was interesting because I listened to, the meeting there. And it was identified in the meeting, you don't have a station, so what are you gonna do? And that's what he's talking about is, where are you gonna build it? What's it gonna cost? But none of that is factored into his numbers.
Yeah, and actually in this sheet, what are we gonna do for fire station? It's very ambiguous as to, well, we'll find some place to lease, and portable living quarters and dormitories may be needed to supplement this facility. They give no monetary number to this, nor do they say what it's going to cost if they lease someplace. The renovations, the upgrades is going to be required to make it usable.
Sure.
And that's gonna be a big number too.
Sure.
So that's not even been.
I can give you some perspective on that because we're engaged in it right now. We have multiple station construction projects going on where we've had to find alternative housing.
Oh.
So it's housing. It's we have a tent for the apparatus because it has to meet that for ISO. It actually has to be undercover. You can't just leave your fire truck out in the sun to make. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. I mean, the tent alone.
You can actually put it in a tent and that's acceptable?
Yeah, it's like one of those massive event type structures. But that alone, $17,000 a year. Your lease on the low end for an appropriate housing facility is going to be anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 a month. But that's not enough. You're going to need more space than that for storage of equipment and everything else. We also lease 40-foot storage trailers to the tune of $400 a month. So there's a lot that goes into the cost of it. And then just for a renovation perspective, if you have to renovate the facility, Station 36 is one of our projects that's happening. That's on County Line Road. That's the only station that we're just doing a strict renovation on. And that was a $1.9 million project. So I always had an issue with going back to when they did the proposals, option 1 through 4, and the cost they were associating with it, that they didn't account for those startup costs for apparatus and capital that are going to, because they say year 1, year 2, two and beyond will see savings, like, well, you're not accounting for the $3, $4, $5, $6 million extra you had to spend the first year. Where are you making that up? It's gonna be 7, 8 years down the road before you start to see any savings. So it's assuming that, indeed, it is cheaper to provide the service.
So I have a question on this that I was going to ask.
Sure.
And basically, in your professional experience, is this a feasible method of cost savings and improved service that is being described here in the frequently asked questions? Is that feasible?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, operationally, they can't do it. Operationally, they can't even function as a true fire department with the setup they're proposing. And fiscally, they're not even accurate with their numbers. I mean, they're so far off. And nobody's even factoring the fact that FP&L, what if FP&L, because you have to provide them a service, if they decide, and that company can do it, if they decide to uproot and leave, who pays for that? I mean,
Can I speak on this one?
yeah.
This is one that I feel really passionate about, because throughout this whole thing, it was always about, we're paying too much, we're paying too much, we're paying too much. I'm like, well, who exactly is paying too much?
Exactly.
Because when you look at the demographic and you look at the MSTU as a whole and the percentages by, property type, who's paying, there's essentially one industry that's footing the lion's share of the bill. So if they had an issue or a problem, I would expect them to come to us and say, hey, listen, what can we work something out to get a discount or whatever else. Because when you look at the actual residents of Indiantown, on average, they're paying roughly $115 a year for fire rescue services. So my argument has always been, well, what would happen if FP&L left? We wouldn't pack up all our stuff and just leave. We'd still have to be there with the same two rescues, fire truck, etc. Because 80% of what we do is medical, so everything would still operate the same way. The difference is that the shortfall of losing that revenue would be encapsulated by the entirety of the county as opposed just to the residents of Indiantown. So now if you're out on your own in Indiantown leaves, and now you gotta fund a $4, $5, $6 million fire department, you don't have the rest of the taxpayers of Martin County to help you cover that cost. Now the residents are gonna go from $115 on average per year to $500, $600, $700 per year. So that's always, because that is a possibility, it could happen. So that's always been something that a point I wanted to get across.
Which brings me to another question. This weekend, Commissioner Jenkins was out in Indiantown, and he pointed to the fact that what you have is a system. And if Indiantown does this, it's going to change that system, not just affecting Indiantown, but affecting all of Martin County. Do you have any insight into that?
We would, our level of service to Martin County wouldn't change. Only thing we would change is when we operate out of in Indiantown. So whether we would stay in the current station that's there that the county owns, or we actually move our station because we still have to serve the unincorporated area.
Right.
So we're not leaving for the county residents because the village chose to do what they did. We will still serve the county residents, no different from, the unincorporated to in town here.
Okay.
So it wouldn't, when you say impact us, we're still gonna be able to do what we do. Our concern with this meeting, it's not because it's gonna affect us financially, it's because we know it's gonna affect the residents as far as, safety wise.
And I think the western Martin County residents that live outside of the incorporated areas of Indiantown, you're talking out at Clemensville and on Fox Brown Road and Springhaven and JNS and all those, they were there Saturday. And I'm sure that you had the opportunity to talk to them. Their concern is, are we still, like he said, are we still going to have that same level of service? And they, like you said, they will.
They will.
But what will it do to the response time?
Well, it all depends where we locate. I can't really tell you that because I don't know where we're gonna plant. Obviously, we have to make that decision when this is final, if it is final. and then we'll be able to, speak a little, more intelligently on that, but right now I just can't, because I can't tell what we're gonna be. But I do know, we will still provide the same level of service. Whether response time changes by a minute or two, yes, is that possible? Sure, but it can go either way depending on what we do.
Right, so it could be one of the small ripples
Yes,
of our actions,
Yes.
that would affect others, not just us. Okay. Gentlemen, you guys are on the ball. I appreciate everything. You guys had to be in here a little bit in order to kind of get all this stuff out here. I appreciate your attention to detail and looking at it and making sure that you hit all the high points. Because personally, I cannot take out one of these and say, this is more important. Every piece of it, it's that piece of the puzzle. You guys have got it all put together, and it makes just a wonderful, wonderful picture and a wonderful service. So I appreciate you. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate the time that you've put into this and expressing it to us and letting us know.
absolutely.
Because this information, it'd be great to do a public service announcement kind of a thing and get this out there, because this is what people need to realize. And I think some of the people in Indiantown realize it, and that's the reason that they are being so vocal. I think that we need to make sure that the council realizes this in their decision-making power that they have. Not just staff coming over and you're talking with them, because we as a council are the ones that need to make this decision. So we need to know this, and I appreciate your time that you've taken in order to express it.
Well, we appreciate you actually sitting down and listening to what we had to say. Because we really haven't had that opportunity with your entire board.
Right.
But we do appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On my part, thank you for the effort that you put into this and the time you've given us for this, because this is important. And as Susan said, our councilwoman, some of the community is understanding it, but I don't think they see all the chess pieces. They're getting part of it.
Right.
They need to see the whole picture. Thank you for sharing that with us.
We're the house.